continued to grow. And in 2016, I earned a Master of Data Science. Master of Data Science from Northwestern University in Chicago. In 2019, I accepted my current role as the Senior Data Scientist for the City of Winnipeg. Winnipeg is the capital and largest city in the province of Manitoba, Canada, with a population just under 750,000. We are located very near the longitudinal center of Canada. Winnipeg's tech and data sectors are growing. We recently won the Most Intelligent Community of 2021 honor from the Intelligent Community Forum. Our open data program ranked 3rd in North America in 2020, according to the Public Sector Digest. And Time Magazine named Winnipeg one of the world's greatest places of 2021. The problem is magazine covers have not always been good news for Winnipeg. In 2015, Maclean's magazine had named Winnipeg the most racist city in Canada. Our current mayor had only newly been elected, and since then he has led the city on a journey to make Winnipeg a leader for equity, diversity, and inclusion. Some of the things Mayor Bowman has done include requiring diversity training for all city employees, establishing a Human Rights Committee of Council, launching an anti-racism week, and recently he asked the public service to create a policy and strategy to increase equity, diversity, and inclusivity in the city's workforce. It's against this backdrop and years of work that the Diversity Dashboard project is based. I want to be sure to acknowledge that the work of equity, diversity, and inclusion is not an issue to be solved with data. There is much work going on at the city. For example, very recently, the city commissioned this mural to greet visitors to City Hall as part of the city's long-term commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. The mural's name translates in English to "We are all related." That said, data does have an important role to play. Our team appreciates this quote from a Harvard Business Review article. When done right, the collection, analysis, and disclosure of diversity data indeed holds the promise of being a powerful lever for progress. So our data innovation is to bring the power of data to one of the highest priorities at the City of Winnipeg. And what I'm presenting to you today is our current work in progress for designing, building, and sharing the City of Winnipeg's Diversity Dashboard. This dashboard is an important piece of the equity, diversity, and inclusion policy and strategy, as it will support data-informed decision-making for this work within the city. The dashboard will use data from the new self-declaration questionnaire, which was launched by the Equity Office in September of 2021, as well as human resources administrative data and data from Statistics Canada. We envision the dashboard to have multiple audiences. Internal audiences will use the dashboard to gauge whether their diversity efforts are creating the desired effect. As well, the dashboard will help focus the city's efforts in areas with the most potential for change toward the city's diversity goals. External audiences will see the city's transparency and commitment to ongoing incremental progress on the priority of diversity, and diverse employees and residents can be empowered knowing the city is making real changes to support them. This work would not be possible without the dedication of the Diversity Reports Working Group, a cross-departmental team of 5 who meets every 2 weeks with a packed and productive agenda. Throughout the project, we have been engaging many partners, stakeholders, and rights holders. Key so far has been the support of the leadership of the Human Resources Department, including the Equity Office and the Innovation and Technology Department. As we are developing our dashboard and prototypes, we have so far engaged the city's chief administrative officer, the senior management team of department directors, and the city's human resources leadership group. We knew that we would be using sensitive human resources data, so we have had early discussions with the city's privacy office and with some of the unions representing city employees. As well, we have shared our work with some of the city's employee resource groups and plan to engage them further as the dashboard evolves. Finally, we have shared news of our work with the city's Standing Policy Committee on Innovation and Economic Development and will present next week to the Human Rights Committee of Council, including the mayor. Throughout the project so far, a few things stand out, notably that working with self-declaration data for the purposes of building a dashboard is not easy. For one reason, each employee can declare more than one identity, so these identities overlap in what is described as intersectionality. For example, out of the city's total workforce as at December 31st, 2020, represented by this circle, we had approximately this many employees declare as women, this many as racialized people, some of whom are also women, approximately this many employees declared as Indigenous peoples and this many as persons with disabilities. The darkest gray areas in this visual represent the intersectional employees who likely face compounded barriers in the workplace. We do hope to use the diversity dashboard to be able to help the city explore where these barriers might show up. The challenge we have ahead of us is how to translate the complex truth of intersectionality into a dashboard in a way that a broad audience can use it to inform their decisions to make real change toward the city's diversity goals. In conclusion, our project can be described with this timeline. Data collection on the new self-declaration questionnaire started in September and is ongoing. Dashboard prototyping started in October and is ongoing. Presentations to executive and senior management started in November, and we have a few more to go. In March, we plan to begin departmental presentations and discussions, and in the future, we will be sharing the dashboard with external audiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was wonderful. And I am sorry that we started the recording halfway through your talk. I know that that was a little bit unsettling, and I'm just going to repeat the introduction for the recording in case, we're going to have a lot of audience members that come in later through recording. So I just wanted to welcome everyone again back for the first CUS seminar of the semester. And for our first two seminars, we will be kicking things off with a special treat. The Open Data Policy Lab is an initiative that came out of the Gov Lab here at NYU under the supervision of Dr. Stefan Verhulst. And this lab has launched just this year a City Incubator program. It is comprised of 10 entrepreneurs who we will be hearing from over the next 2 weeks. And these entrepreneurs are working to advance the use of data in their respective cities around the world. We will hear from 5 today and then 5 next week. And then in the following week, the third week, we'll have Dr. Verhulst talk. I'll now hand it off to our next speaker. We just heard from Jen Bodnarchuk, and now our next speaker will be Henry Xavier Hernandez Rendon. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah. Hello. Good afternoon to all. Receive a cordial greeting from me, and thank you for, wait a minute. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon to all. Receive a cordial greeting from me, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present in this space the innovation that we are carrying out in the municipality of Guayaquil. As a first point, I'm going to tell you something about me. My name is Henry Hernandez Rendon. I am the information manager in the information technology department in the municipality of Guayaquil. I am in charge of data management and the development of the different information products that the users of the municipality require. Products such as data sets, information cubes, dynamics reports, tabular reports, among others. The second point is the city background. Guayaquil is located in Guayaquil, in Ecuador. It is the second most populated city in the country after Quito, which is the capital. It has 2.7 million people. It is located on the coast of the Pacific Ocean in the coastal region of the Ecuador. The eastern part of Guayaquil is on the banks of the Guayas River, about 20 kilometers from its mouth in the Pacific Ocean. The city of Guayaquil is governed by a municipality. The municipality of Guayaquil is a sectional government entity that manages the canton autonomously from the central government. The executive power of the city is carried out by a citizen with the title of Mayor of Guayaquil. Our dear Mayor is Cynthia Viteri Jimenez. Now, the problem our data innovation is addressing. The city of Guayaquil does not have a place where citizens can download relevant information, relevant data sets to create new business post-pandemic. All of this is based on the fact that Guayaquil is not a data-driven city. With this project, with this innovation project, we want to change that. Our innovation project is called Ciudadano 360 or Citizen 360 Open Data. Ciudadano 360 Open Data, it is an initiative led by by EPICO, our municipal public company for the management of the innovation and competitiveness, and supported by the Department of Information Technologies of the municipality of Guayaquil. It is a tool that takes advantage of the unification of the information from different companies of the municipal corporation to incorporate the information required by the citizens as open data. The municipality of Guayaquil has internal and external entities, and all of these entities have a lot of information. The internal entities are the municipal departments, and the external entities are the companies of the municipal corporation. The internal sources of information are the internal departments. All of these are the internal departments of the municipality of Guayaquil. And the companies that are part of the municipal corporation that are the external sources of information are these. For example, the municipal transit authority controls the traffic and land transport in the city, and the municipal transit authorities have a lot of information about traffic, about maps, about the transport in the city. Our users and our audience for this innovation project are the public sector, the private sector, the academy, and civil society. Our technical background, we are going to integrate all of this information from internal sources and external sources in our data lake with Microsoft Azure Data Lake. And we are going to publish this information, these data sets, through Microsoft Research Open Data web portal. Our challenges achieve the constant collaboration of external companies, of which we already have a pre-commitment, achieve synchronization of the different data sources, and deploy the Microsoft Open Data site to expose our data sets. The timeline, on September 2021, we carry out workshop to identify the open data needs of both public and private companies.
I just want to let you know, Henry, it's the 2-minute mark right now.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay. On October 2021, we carry out our formal survey to identify the specific information needs that the different companies in the city of Guayaquil needs to generate new business opportunities. We had 182 participants. And the information that we can obtain is that all of these companies needs information about economy and market, for example, consumption habits, purchases, sales, service that they use, demographic and socioeconomic information, for example, economically active population by sectors, information about health, maps, a lot of maps, for example, street, transport routes, for example, transparent and public expenditure, transportation and mobility, environment. And on October 2021, we create a group of information managers with representatives from each of the municipal departments. On November, we create a draft for the Open Data Ordinance for the city of Guayaquil. This is the first draft of the Open Data Ordinance for Guayaquil. And in December, we create the External Information Managers Group. So the next steps, we select the four data sets to allow us to work on an MVP for the month of March. And on January, we build our provisional open data portal using Microsoft Research Open Data. And on March, we are going to launch our open data portal for the end of the innovation program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. Now I will pass it off to our next speaker, Val Murasan. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly.
Sure, no problem. It's correct.
Okay.
Just share my screen. Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. So, yeah. So tonight I'm going to present the Civic Incubator project of the city of Timișoara. It's called Civic Inspector. Obviously, it's a prototype, and it's a tool to engage citizens and enable at the same time the clerical officers in our city hall. Just a bit of a background. Timișoara is the most western city in Romania. It has a lot of history and multicultural background, and it's on the border with Serbia and Hungary. It's a place of innovation historically, and basically in the last post-communism, it has become a pole of excellence in automotive and IT sector. It's the place where the Romanian Revolution started in 1989, and yeah, we have a bit of a legacy here, and we hope that we can change things in the way things are delivered in the administration. So the project is about a civic inspector. It's basically a application, both web and mobile, which is supposed to digitalize processes in our city hall, increase the transparency, engage the citizens, and use their energy to actually report on possible issues with services in our city, offload this way the clerical officers, and track the quality of the services altogether. You can see a few snapshots here of the mobile application. My background, I have joined early last year, the City Hall. I have a startup and corporate background. I'm an IT professional and entrepreneur, and I joined the City Hall, being invited by the new leadership that has won the elections more than a year ago to change things we do. The way we do things in administration. I used to be the GM of one important companies in Romania, and I took a sabbatical to basically join this endeavor. The problem we are trying to solve here in Timișoara is the fact that even though we are a source of talent for many corporations, the problem is that the administration, for some I don't know, cultural and legacy reasons, it's still bureaucratic, and there is little digitalization in our city hall day-to-day business. And as a result, there is a lot of paperwork dealt with in our organization, and you can imagine that the efficiency of our processes is quite poor. But on the other hand, there is a lot of pressure from the citizens to change things as quickly as possible, and that's where we think we should tap into the civic energy and engage them into validating the services, the cleaning services in our city. The platform we are building, it's basically tracking and spotting any problems with the quality of the services, and engaging the citizens to report on them. So if you want, it's like a 311 service in the US, but it's not the passive approach where you report only issues. It's a proactive approach where we actually let citizens to validate that the services is delivered to the standard. So the solution to this problem, which is very complex, is to basically devise a portal, both mobile and web-based. And basically, we want to connect the service providers to the city on cleaning and pruning trees in parks and so on, with the clerical officers. And the way we want to make this happen is to make all this servicing transparent to the whole city, so that we can engage the citizens in their neighborhoods to report on the quality of these services as they are being delivered in their districts. So if you want, it's a crowdsourcing approach. The sources of data are basically this timetable of the services to be delivered in town. It's transparent and public to the citizens. Then the relevant citizens can see when a service is delivered, and then they can actually go on this platform and upload pictures with the quality of the service. And this way, the quality of the service is validated or invalidated with evidence. And then the clerical officers can actually help persuading the service providers to actually fix these reports one way or the other. So in the end, the services quality is documented and is if you want a good record for future contracts and future bidding. The technical solution is a map of the city where you have the timetable of the services to be delivered. And as they are being delivered, as I mentioned, the citizens can actually post pictures of the result of the services in their neighborhood. The stakeholders involved here and the innovation of it is the fact that we hired volunteers to help developing the platform. Then the service providers can show the timetable they have to provide, the timeline and the area, and the public servants can actually overlook this process, and they don't have to do a lot of legwork checking what's the quality of the service being delivered everywhere. They actually watch if there is any reports on those services from the citizens. Obviously, it takes a bit of time to adopt the solution and get a proper audience, but that's where we think that we can improve the overall quality of such services in our town. So that's the let's say the citizen side, the user side of the application, which is a mobile application, which you can actually use to upload a picture with the evidence of the service in your neighborhood, and then wait for a result, like either the service provider coming to fix any problem, or actually you can validate the services of good quality, which is actually also a good interaction with the application.
If we can just, we're at the 2-minute mark, so just.
Sure. The anticipated impact is the fact that the whole, all the services are broadcasted, they are transparent and traceable on a public platform. All the services are documented, both by timetable, delivery, and evidence pushed up by citizens. This saves a lot of the public servants' time and would make them more effective and utilize them with the tool to actually overlook the whole process. And we expect a higher citizen engagement and satisfaction because they are actually part of the process and involved in making sure that the quality of the service is to the standard. The challenges we are seeing is the fact that given the current organizational culture we have in the city hall, we are seeing that not many clerical officers want to use it, and then we have to find early adopters, show them how to use it in the city hall. Obviously, advertise the application, the mobile application, to the citizens, and build this interaction and audience for the application. So it's a shift of the mindset from let's say a hate discourse on the social media to a more constructive engagement of the citizen. So in the end, the city should basically get higher quality services in our town. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me invite our next speaker, Nicholas Diaz.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. All right. Well, I appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk with you all. My presentation is how the city of Syracuse is using a data and equity approach to ARPA. ARPA is a term that I will use many times throughout this presentation. It stands for American Rescue Plan Act. And these are the contents of my presentation. Just a little bit about me. I am Chief Innovation and Data Officer for the City of Syracuse. I'm a Master in Public Policy, which means that I know a little about a lot of different things. But my focus and interest lies at the intersection of technology, data, and public sector innovation. I head the Office of Accountability, Performance, and Innovation at the City of Syracuse, and I have 8 years of experience working at the state of and local level in both my home country of Chile and the United States. Just to give you a brief background on both my role and my department, we have a weird portfolio that spans across the innovation, data, and performance management side of things. So on our first bracket, experimental and responsive government, we run programs from our innovation portfolio to our innovation academy, to our project management office. On the data side of things, we run our open data portal, data infrastructure and governance efforts for the entire enterprise, surveillance technology oversight, and what work cities. As for performance management, we help run the senior staff OKRs, which stands for objective and key results, mayoral dashboard and KPIs, which are more operational metrics, and ARPA performance management, which is going to be the focus of my presentation. So just a little bit about Syracuse. Syracuse is around 150,000 population city in central New York. It is a post-industrial city, which for many decades after the 70s was in a steep decline following the loss of industrial jobs. And right now, under Mayor Walsh's leadership, has really made an effort to become a smart city that's inclusive in its growth and that attracts, that keeps attracting all sorts of talents. For the American Rescue Plan Act, more specifically, Syracuse received $123 million from the federal government in 2021 as part of this large COVID recovery package that the Biden administration was offering. This represents nearly half of our yearly operating budget in one go, so it's a significant amount of money. It's a transformative investment in the city of Syracuse. And as part of that, Mayor Walsh asked us at the city to be purpose-driven, data-informed, and very thorough in the implementation of these projects. The American Rescue Plan called for cities to be data-driven, evidence-driven, and also put a focus on serving vulnerable populations, but with very little guidance on how exactly to do that. So that's what we were trying to figure out. And traditionally, what you'll find is that in local government, or at least in Syracuse, the traditional approach to program management, local government is not very good. There's no definition of outcomes, there's no data collection plan, there's no explicit setting of equity goals, there's poor project management standards throughout, and very little transparency to the public. And we wanted to change that with this big pool of money. We wanted to use this as an opportunity to introduce new practices. And instead of that, have every project identify outcomes, like what they want to do. I know it sounds super obvious, but sometimes that's where you need to start with in local government. We wanted to have a data collection plan for every single project. We want to have equity goals when appropriate, and just have solid project management standards, which would, when we put all of that together, would allow a high visibility to the public on how the city is doing when it comes to spending their ARPA money. And this all begins like very simply, like with very little technology, just putting together basic project sheets and like having conversations with the departments and asking them to fill out like very simple information, like what is your project trying to do? Like who's responsible for it? What's the ultimate goal? How are you going to be spending your money? What are your major milestones? Again, like, I know that this sounds super obvious, like, don't all city governments work like this? Well, not in my experience. And as you can see in the bottom, like, we're also asking them to define performance management plans, equity management plans, budget, and so on. Then we put all of this together, and we decided to build a dashboard where we would indicate to the public how we were doing. And this is the first version of our dashboard. We would just like quickly put something together based on the data that we were collecting. It's not very clear, it's not very useful, but I just want to show like this was our first version, because we would then iterate and we would do some prototyping and user testing, and we would show the different versions of the tool to the audience so that they would tell us what was working and what wasn't working. So from that, we went to this much.
Nicholas, I just wanted to let you know we are at the 5-minute mark. So
that means I have 2 minutes, or I have 5 minutes? Okay.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. Okay. Let me know when I run out of time. So this is what the tool looks like now, and I just pointed out a couple of improvements that we made. Contrasting color that draws more attention, the ability to compare across categories. Tabs at the top offer better navigation. You have a legend. We remove a lot of the clutter. And here the point is that you can see like how many projects are in motion, how many are complete, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can actually dig down deeper and see like, oh, like here's the individual projects that are going on at the city of Syracuse. In the other tab, you can see how much money they're spending. And here you can see what the intended outputs are. So for example, for homeowner support, that's 720 households which will receive assistance. And as these projects get going, we will also be capturing in close to real time what their actual output is, so that the city, so that citizens can hold us accountable to the promises that we're making. So this is including information on project status, spending progress, and project outputs. You can drill down by the different categories, and we update every Friday. And to be perfectly clear, like this is all using like a very basic technology. This is Google Docs for doing project management, Google Sheets for building our database, Power BI for visualizations, Open Cities for putting this online. And I guess since I'm running out of time and I can share my slides afterwards, I'll just end with a reflection, which is oftentimes we think of building a data-driven city. It's all about like the fancy data science projects and the data infrastructure and all of that. And I think all of that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan of those sort of things, but you also need to think about the culture and how introducing the right practices and talking with departments helps them to push themselves to higher standards. And to me, the value of this is not the dashboard itself, which I think is great, but it's rather all of those conversations that happen in the background to get us here. Working with the departments to say like, hey, perhaps you could have an equity target here. Perhaps you should have your business loans have a 20% target for targeting minority and woman-owned businesses, and then building that muscle so that moving forward we are data and performance driven by default.
Okay, thank you so much. And that is it for our speakers today. We'll have one of our speakers that was going to speak today actually speak next week. So we had 4 speakers today. We'll have 6 speakers next week. And that'll give us a little bit of extra time for more in-depth Q&A today. So thank you so much for all of our speakers today. Those were really wonderful talks, and thank you for packing them in to such short periods of time. So I'm going to open it up to the audience for questions. And people can just either raise their hand, or if you just, we have a pretty big audience here, so I might not see raised hands right away. So if people just want to like unmute themselves and start speaking, they can just go ahead and do that. So do we have any questions?
I see a question. Oh, I see Juan wants to ask, and then there's a question in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Charlotte.
Okay, so just maybe to get the conversation started, I wanted to pick on that last point that Nicolas was making. And, you know, like coming from a lot of people in the center are very interested on the way you call it was the fancy data science component. So I'm guessing, how can we bring these two conversations together? You know, like how can we create spaces where, you know, like technologies will still have an interest in terms of like trying to come up with innovations for, you know, real problems, while not being completely off target in terms of the real needs of these communities, in terms of this process of creating a culture where people will actually see the use of using these technologies or data, or like inform their decisions in this way, right? What is, not only Nicolas, but I guess the entire group, you know, what is your insight or thoughts on that? How can we, you know, close the gap?
I can start. I've been senior data scientist at the City of Winnipeg now for 2.5 years, and I think it's my daily task for myself. Like, who can I talk to today and just put one little seed of that idea of like using data to make decisions? How can I say, oh, like, look at this problem, and maybe what about, do we have data on this? Do we have data on that? How can we use this? How can we build that? So I don't know if I have a good answer to that, but it is just an ongoing, constant building of this culture.
Beautiful.
I would,
other people want to answer that as well? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that it's important to recognize that it's an ongoing process. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And I would say that we've been at it for several years now. And you have to recognize like what level of executive leadership support you have, and leverage that to the best of your ability, because Mayor Walsh in our case has been so adamant that we need to be a data-driven city that he has made that part of, you know, he was the one that put my office, which is like the data office, in the ARPA governance group, and that was a conscious decision. So he has asked his team, his senior staff to be data-driven on his operations, and that cascades down. So we've been trying to build that expectation, and it's a year-long process. I still meet resistance, and part of this, I skipped over this, but like there was a lot of nervousness. So like, hey, like, why are we making things transparent and not just opening us up to problems? And my response is, yeah, like we're not gonna get 100% of our targets, and that's the point. And if we're making things transparent, is because we trust the public to understand that, you know, like, we're not going to hit 100% of things that we do, because that's the point of innovation. So I still have to have those conversations, but you know, it's a work in progress. The other thing I'd recognize is you're going to have different levels of adoption, and you're going to have allies sometimes in unlikely places, and you have to reach out, understand who your allies are, and really leverage those, because those are going to help you build your use cases and your examples, which are going to just be a guide star for the rest of the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I actually, okay, so first of all, let's take a question from the audience that was put in the chat, and then I have a question. I wonder if the speakers can elaborate on the culture change or lack of it that helped or hurt their open data projects.
Yeah, I'll take this one, Timișoara, Valmureșan. Yeah, it's quite a challenge from a cultural point of view, because we have 4 different stakeholders, as we mentioned. It's now for the moment. So the whole context in Timișoara is that the new leadership, that has come obviously has promised changing the way things are done in our city and so on. The expectations are quite high, and we are, after 1 year, we have already seen a part of the, let's say, of the community saying, okay, guys, why don't you start showing us, you know, the revolution you promised? And the way we see things changing is actually using technology and data to show that things are improving. And yeah, what I presented today is one of the prototypes. We have several prototypes that we have built with the volunteers. So the good thing is that the volunteers have joined the City Hall to help, like IT professionals, to help the organization to actually prototype new solutions, which are basic 311 applications that I mentioned, and other tools that make the data transparent. And then the other stakeholder is the service provider who used to deliver, you know, up to whatever quality, but nobody was really able to pinpoint where the problem were and so on. And there was, you know, you could see people complaining, but not really finding proper evidence. The citizens seem to be very interested to use such a tool to show, look, guys, you know, this service is not delivered as it should be. And finally, the officers in our City Hall organization, it's the huge, let's say, how should I say, challenge is the fact that they are not used to such tools. And the hardship we are seeing is actually in the City Hall organization to find the early adopters to test the tool, and obviously the engagement has to come both ways, you know, from outside, from the community, and from inside, from the City Hall. And yeah, we are weak on the City Hall side, so that's where the cultural change has to be pushed as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have another question from the audience from Brandon. He says he's a huge fan of the open data work. It feels that the next step is not just hosting open data, but creating ways to make the information actionable. How do we take the next steps to make open data actionable for the common public to find benefit from?
I can carry on saying that this is the type of, what I presented is the type of tool that actually makes the data actionable, because it shows this has to be fixed and someone has to take action on it. And it's so transparent that, you know, it's like a ticking bomb, you know, for whoever should be in charge and responsible and not delivering on it.
I also just wanted to.
If I could add to this real quick. So Valis is pinpointed the accountability issue. I was wondering if there is also the element along these lines of not what has not been done, but also what is missing. I was wondering if this is sort of a more actionable item that may have come up in parts of the projects that we saw today.
Is the question addressed to me?
It's to all speakers.
Okay, so I'll let other people answer.
Because we saw populations missing, and that was data that needed to be collected. I was wondering if your research showed more things that were missing, or that would maybe would require more action from federal, state, or city agencies.
I think that's a really good question, and that makes it hard to answer. I think there is an aspect of, so taking open data, for example, of of the city. Cities can release open data, but it may not be the data that the citizens are most interested in. I know that was one of the things that I told Henry I was most interested about his project, and this idea of actually asking the citizens like what they want. So that might be, I mean, maybe one example of something that's missing is, and communication is hard no matter where you are, but communicating with the citizens about what data would be most useful in the work that they are trying to do.
Thank you.
And I would also just like to invite Henry maybe also to maybe chime in on this, since your project's very open data focused.
Yes, sure. In our survey, the object of our survey is to collect the right information, the right need that the people have about to know to create new business. No? So we did a survey to get this information, and all of this information that the people need to create is too important to create, to go to the right sources to get all of this information to create all of this business.
I just wanted to sort of try to tie the two questions, this question and the last question, together, and say that we should be clear that open data is not only about accountability. And I know that Adrian and the rest of the folks over at GovLab have this very well developed this theory, but just from my perspective, open data is not only to hold people accountable, but also for allowing innovations to happen even outside of City Hall walls, and for analysis that are meaningful to come, like perhaps a business would like to see like what type of permits are being pulled, or a professor would like to see where the more flooding complaints are happening. And I think, you know, the points that have been raised by Jen and Henry are so important. Like I hired an open data manager recently, and I told him, like, I don't want you to just make the portal pretty. I want you to be reaching out to folks, and I want you to be involved in the community. Go to the local hacking groups, go to like enroll in hackathons, because we want to be hearing from the people that are most likely to use our open data portal. Secondly, I also like to say, I don't think open data by itself is enough for generating accountability, because to generate accountability, you also need strategy. You also need metrics and the setting of targets, and that doesn't happen just by having an open data portal.
This is all very helpful. Thank you so much.
So one question I have for the speakers is, do you come across, like, let's say you have a government that is very like much wanting your help, right? And so you have a government that's on your side, but is there still a challenge in taking some of the findings you find from your data and turning those into policy changes, just in terms of the red tape that's involved? Maybe not all of these projects are necessarily about policy change, but for those that are about policy change, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. And like, how long of a process is that? Is it like you find something and then 5 years later the policy changes, or is it something that can happen pretty quickly? Yeah, so just any thoughts on that?
I can mention that we are early days in Timișoara, obviously with the new leadership for a year. But for example, one policy changing that was enabled by recently is the introduction of a participatory budgeting, let's say, initiative, where basically we want to bring civic engagement into the sort of on the city map, and it involves interactions on project proposals, the kind of triage of them and so on. And this is maybe with less kind of continuous data, but yeah, there is several elements here in the current policies that can be actually digitalized. And once they are digitalized, they become transparent and they are source of data. And we hope that revealing this data actually brings on a lot of audience. And I think that's where you know, the things should be, the strategy should work on. Actually, data should be food for let's say civic engagement in our city.
Thank you. Well, I'll just open up to the floor again. If anyone else has any questions that I've missed, please just feel free to speak up. Otherwise, I think that we're getting close to our end of time now, so I guess we can wrap it up here. Thank you again so much for this group. I'm really looking forward to our speakers next week as well, and this is just really fascinating to hear about this really hands-on work that's being done in local governments around the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.